Hey guys, Chris Dick here. Today we're going to be moving on to part 5 of our social media integration project. And what we got from part 4 is that we got the result, the JSON result from our Facebook feed. Now, that just comes into us as a string. So what we now have to do is convert that string into a JSON object. This is where there's a little bit of legwork involved. And what I'm going to do is sort of get us started by explaining what is returned and what is, how does this JSON object actually look. So we're going to introduce a new type here. It's called dynamic, and I'm going to call it JSON object. The right out of the box, C# has a JSON object decoder that we can use. And what we're going to be using here is we're going to take the result that came into us as a string, feed it into the JSON decoder, and that will relate back to a full object, like a real object. The difference, though, is that it's not quite a C# object as we want it to be, so we're going to sort of take it apart, and we're going to build our own Facebook models around the data that comes from this. So let's get started here. Okay, so we're here at our main page of our application. We are already logged in, so that means we're authenticated. So let's go into Facebook./posts, and we'll just get off starting to use our application. And I'll start off first of all by showing you what the JSON result is that came from our application. So what we see is that right now it just looks like a bunch of jumbled code, and we're going to start to parse out what that code actually means. So if I go back into our action here and start by debugging what happens when this decode works, we'll get an object, and I'm going to show you that right now. So we just go over here, hit refresh. If I add a debug point or a watch on our JSON object, let's just clear off a couple things that don't necessarily need to be there. All right, so we go in here. We can start off by seeing that we have a feed object, okay? Our feed object, if you recall, and let's do this here as well. We're gonna pull in our URL, and we're going to grab this text from the URL, grab this whole thing, and we're going to use our JSON viewer. So to make this work, once again, we'll go to load URL. We'll just paste that URL in, and we'll go to display this. Okay, so we have our list here already set up. Now, the two options that it does not show off the top, okay, right now it shows that we have a root that we start off with, okay. We go into an array. That array has 3 elements. We have with the attributes of ID, name, feed. If we go back over to our JSON object in Visual Studio, you see we have a feed, ID, and name. Okay, it doesn't come up with root and array to start, so we're not going to be worried about what's there. Now, from the feed, we have 2 items. We have data and we have paging. The one that we're most going to be concerned about is data. And you can see that in this case, I asked for 1,000 entries, so it gives us 275 entries to start. And if you recall from one of our previous videos, if it reaches a depth of more than 275 entries, it offers up paging so that I can go and request more information. So we'll go into this. Now, in each data that is retrieved from feeds, this is all post data. So if you recall from the Graph API referencing, each one of these data points is a post, okay? In that, I have two other objects. I have a collection of objects, that is. So I have likes, which also has data and paging, okay? You're going to see that being a fairly common thing because it automatically offers a way to ask for more if there isn't something already there. Or sorry, if there's too much in the queue. Okay. Attachments is very similar. Okay. In this case, we don't have any paging. Not really sure why, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But what's most important to understand is what is the object in the data collection here? Well, this is likes, so one like would be one likes entity would be a like. So we would create an object called a like object, okay? Same with down here. If it's in the attachments, then the object is naturally going to be called an attachment. Inside of an attachment, we have media and target. Inside of media, we have image. Okay, a media image has height, source, and width. Okay, so all these objects is the things that we're going to be building with the object that we create from this point on. So let's get started here. So we're going to just continue on, and then we're going to stop our application. And the first thing that we're going to work on is we're going to add some models. Okay, right now these are the models we have. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that social media. Okay, as you notice, I'm not putting any spaces in the name, so you try to use good naming conventions. Go to add, and in this case, actually, you know what? Let's put in Facebook. Just one more level of name spacing here. Go to add, and then we're going to create a class, and we're going to call it a feed class. Notice the case as well. It's all lowercase, and once again, that's just to match the naming conventions that they have used. Okay. There are other methods of converting JSON objects, but we're going to use this sort of long form method to deserialize our JSON. All right. Okay, so we have in the feed object we have two properties. First of all, we have an ID. Okay, if you recall back up here. All right, and then we have name. All right. The other thing that we have is an array of post objects. Okay, so here we do this. We'll just do post like that, and you'll notice it automatically throws in something there that I don't want, and we're going to call this data. Okay, so from here it's saying that, hey, wait a minute, there's no post object, so let's go ahead and generate a post. And it's not particularly adding it, so we're going to generate class post right here, and it's always going to be in the same file, and all this stuff is going to be in exactly the same file, so we'll just make it really easy to work with here. Okay, so now we have this class called post, and it was generated easily from that. We'll go look over here what else we have. So in each post, we have story. So that means we just simply type prop and story. We have create time. Okay. String, create time. Okay. Now, one thing that you notice here is that this is actually a special kind of string. It's a date time string. But because it's coming into us as a string, we will have to deal with it a little differently than a date time string. So instead of using just the standard date time, we're going to take it in as a string, and then we're going to have another convertible object that uses that string. Next thing I'm going to add is a string that represents the ID. Okay, and let's see, we have a collection of likes. So naturally, a collection of likes means that each item in the array is called like. So here we do the same thing as we did before. We're just going to create a class called likes, or like. Okay, and the next thing is attachments. Okay, attachments, write that. Okay, same thing. We create another class called attachment. All right, and we're going to deal with likes first here, seeing as it just comes naturally in our list that way. Each like has a data point. Okay, and okay, very good. And in fact, this one is slightly different here, actually. So I'm going to do it like this, okay? I'm going to call this a likes class, all right? And in that is a collection of like, and that is our data, okay? And we'll create that that class as we've done before, just like that, okay? And I'm not going to deal with the paging right now. It's not necessarily for what we're trying to do, and we'll work on that a little later. Okay. So going back here, let's see. Our attachments have data, and we could deal with attachments the same way that we do our likes. You know what? I think in this case, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm gonna go in here, and we're just gonna do this. Okay. Seeing as all we're doing is duplicating the same thing. They have the same properties, slightly different. Okay, and that means we have to go back up here as well. Okay. Now, what else do we have here? In an attachment, we have description. Okay. And it is a string. All right, then we have media. Okay, so again, another custom class. Media, whoops, media, and media. We'll create another class. And generic type, there we go. Okay. What else do we have? We have a target object. Whoop. Target. Now you notice I'm just going long form here. I could have had Visual Studio do that for me, but either one will get you there. And again, I'm just going to reorganize that so it's in the order that it appears. All right, what else do we have in attachment? We have title. I'm going to keep all my string objects up here. Title. Okay, we have a couple more. Type. Now type is slightly different. It is something called an enumerable, which means it has a specific set of rules around it. I'm not going to worry about the fact that it should be an enumerable right now. I'm just going to take it in as a string and report it as is. If I wanted to, in other words, if I really wanted to get in depth with this, I could create an enumerable class here that would say, type only accepts these things, and if I set it as such, I have to set it of one of these things in this list of properties, in this collection, in other words. But right now, we're only using this to get information and use that information, so we're not really too worried about what everything looks like or how it will function in the future. We're just focused on this part. Okay. Now, let's dig into the media object, and media, in this case, has an image. Okay, and image, once again, we're gonna create that object. Okay, within image, we have height, source, and width. Okay, now our height is something that I want to deal with right away. You'll notice in our information here that we get from JavaScript or JSON, we are pulling, for example, this is a string that's coming in, and we know that because it's wrapped in quotes. Same with the attribute titles. However, height of image is coming in as an integer. It's coming in as a real number. If it was wrapped in quotes, then it would be slightly different. So in this case here, we're going to count our height as an integer. Okay. And then we have width. And then we have one more string property called src. Okay, that's super. I think we've got all of the difficult ones here. And then we've got last one, we've got target. And target has, so far what I can see is ID and URL. ID. URL. Okay. Now there will be more information that comes out of some of these objects for target, but right now I'm really just focused on the simple stuff that comes from it. We'll start to gather more details later on. Okay. Awesome. So far we've got pretty much everything that we need here. What we're going to do now is we're going to set up a couple constructors. And in this case, I'm going to use a constructor, and I'm going to be feeding in the JSON object, okay, that is coming in, and I'm going to just call that JSON. Okay. Now I'm going to store this object as well. All right. And we're going to do it like this. In fact, I'm going to just make this a public property. Copy this information instead of typing out it again. Here we are. Okay. I'm going to set that to the JSON that we have. Okay. Now, from here, I can really easily do this. I can do JSON object dot ID. Okay. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that JSON itself doesn't have the property ID, but it's something called a dynamic object, which means that if within that object the property ID does exist, it'll assign a value of from into our ID. Okay, so we'll just keep that in mind as we start working on our objects. Okay, now the next step that I'm going to do here, I'm going to stop at feed for a moment and just to demonstrate how this works. So here, I'm going to start off by doing models.socialmedia.facebook.feed. Okay, and I'm going to call it a feed object equals new feed. Okay, we're going to feed in the JSON object. Okay, that's going to be going in straight in as the feed. Okay, let's go ahead and run this, and I'm going to debug once we're ready. Okay, we're here and we're going to refresh our posts so we get into our debug point. Okay, so we're here in our JSON object. We're just going to quickly check what our object looks like one more time. And what we have here is our feed object and ID and name. Now, already I can see there's some problems. Okay, so our feed is not quite correct. Our object hierarchy, first of all, starts off by saying that in the feed object, we have a feed object, if you can read me. And we have the attributes of ID and name. Okay. So right off the bat, as we start passing this through, so let's consider what we have to do to make our object a little bit more shaped correctly so that it fits the needs of the JSON objects that's returned. So what happens here? First of all, we're going to call this one posts. Okay, we just made a copy of the feed object. I'm going to call this one posts. Okay, posts will contain a feed object, name, and ID. Okay, so from that, we do this. We've got feed, and we're going to call that feed. All right. We set feed equal to JSON object dot feed. Okay, that's the object that's coming in. All right. Now, from that, oops, actually that's not right at all. So just one moment. We have to do new feed. Okay, and we're going to feed that in. There we are. That's going to work. And then we have this. Okay, now we're going in, we're feeding this JSON object into our constructor here. Remember, with our feed, we don't need any of these properties anymore. So in feed, if we go back over to our information over here, in a feed object, we have data. We also have paging. We're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so data is a collection or array of posts. Okay, so we have post objects, and it's an array, and we're going to call that data. Very, very simple like that. Okay, and if you recall, each post have ID, story, create time, likes, attachments, so on and so forth down the road. All right, now in order to enumerate the data of the posts here, right, we have a couple things that we have to start off with. First of all, we do have to qualify that we actually have a valid JSON object. Okay, so if it's not equal to null, then continue. All right, next one, we want to consider that do we actually have data? So if data is not equal to null, then we will continue as well. Now, in the process of enumerating or looping over each one of these data sources, we are going to, what we have to do first of all is um, we have to size our array. So this case is very simple, okay? We say that array is the size of data dot, just like that, okay? Now, very simply, we're going to just do this. I equals 0, simple for loop, okay? As long as I is, whoops, there we go. Got to do that loop right. Okay, as long as I is less than data dot length, okay, we keep incrementing I. Okay, so that means that as we go through this, we're going to say data I is equal to new post, okay, and our post currently doesn't have a constructor that is similar to this one up here, so I'm going to copy some of these details in again, and we're going to copy that into post. We'll make a couple modifications as well. Okay, there we are. Change that to post. Now we've kind of got everything that we need all to start. We are also going to make a few changes here because we need likes and attachments, and these are going to work exactly the same way as we do it up here. So from here, I'm going to take this information and I'm going to ask for the I element from data in our JSON object. Okay, so that part's pretty simple. Now we have to go down into our post, and if you think about it like this, this is going to be pretty simple here. All I have to do is really just copy that code into here. Now, some people are going to say, "Hey, why aren't you being a little bit more dynamic?" Well, I need to be able to show you what is happening behind the scenes, and I'm not going to get too crazy with how many ways I can do this. Now, one thing I just realized as I was developing this part here, I forgot to notice that our likes and our attachments are slightly different. They have this data element in them, so I'm actually going to wrap this information into our likes objects. So, no biggie. Let's go ahead and we're going to copy this whole thing into our likes object. Get rid of the things, of course, that we don't need. Okay. This one is data. Okay, and here we go. We've got a constructor for likes now, and we need to grab this dynamic JSON object from up there. Getting better all the time. Okay. And let's see, now we have data.length. We're kind of looking very similar to the top one now. You can see there's a bit of a pattern emerging here. Okay. Now this little error here is just saying that we don't have a constructor for like. So I'm going to once again copy over some of the data. Okay, but not all of that one because we don't need the whole thing. Okay, copy over this one. You'll see a lot of these things that you end up repeating yourself with. Okay, great. All right, so we sorted that out. Now let's just continue dealing with this up here. We'll just make sure that we've got all of this information correct. And so far it looks pretty good because what it's doing is confirming that we have a valid object, confirming whether we have valid data, sizing the array of data, then looping over to apply the data into each one of the data elements. Now within the like object, we also have some other attributes, and I guess I must have missed them as we were going through, so I'm going to go back over and we'll start grabbing some of these data points. And so far, it simply looks like there's ID and name. So we're kind of lucking out there. We don't have to, we can just go over here and copy these properties, the ID and name properties, into our like object. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Then the next stage, JSON object dot ID, just like we did up top, and name. Now I'm just going to go back up here. I'm going to just confirm very quickly that we're doing this correctly up here. And we didn't, so I want to make sure I'm going to add that little fail-safe in here. So we do this. If it's not equal to null, whoops, can't do not plus null, like that. And take away that, don't need that. Sometimes it's helpful to have those little features, but sometimes it's not. So, okay, now the next stage is, do we have a feed object? And as long as that's not equal to null, we can feed the feed object into our object, and then that creates that object from there. Now let's just keep going down here. We've done our likes, so that means now we can deal with the attachments. So if we look at where we had our attachments, I'm going to steal this code right here, okay, because it pretty much looks the same. And we're going to deal with this one in a moment, so don't get too worried. Okay, we're in attachments. Okay, and what you can see here is, okay, we want attachment, and pretty good. That one's just complaining because we don't have a constructor yet. All right, so here it calls attachments, which does the constructor, pulls in the data, sizes the arrays, loops over, and adds the data elements. Now, in this one, Visual Studio has a couple things, and I'm going to just do a generate constructor, and you can see that just simply threw that information in there. It's slightly different, so and I don't really like the way it looks, so I'm going to take the same information here. There we go. Take that down, throw it in here. Good. All right. And that is just an attachment object that we're pulling in. All right. So once again, we do a test if it's null. Okay. If it's not null, then we start to apply the attributes. Okay. So that means JSON object dot description. Okay. Title equals JSON object dot title. We have type equals JSON. Everybody's kind of getting the idea here. I probably don't have to talk too much about this, but I will continue talking about it. All right, last one. Good. Now, We also have our media and target. So we can set media equal to new media. Okay, and if you recall what we did up here, go way, way up, way up. There we are. Okay. If you call what we did up here, we want to do a little test for that. So let's see, let's just go back down to media. Okay, we want to do a test here for media. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, guys, but sometimes that's the way it is when you do programming. Okay, I'm going to copy this because now we also have a target object. Okay, there we have it. Good. And of course it's complaining just because we have to add in the constructor. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, we'll do that for media, and we might as well do the same for target right now, seeing as we're right here. And I'm also going to add one in for image because that's going to need to be there as well. Okay, so we have target. We'll just switch out these areas where we've got errors that are coming up. We've got image. Excellent. Okay, I think we're pretty good. Now, the one last thing that we have to do, because there is in media, it has a sub object called image. Okay, and we just simply do it just like this. Okay, perfect. All right. So now that we've got that established, we look at media object. We'll go back up here to our attachment. We'll start reviewing how the media constructor works. And in media, we're pretty much finished here. All we have to do, all we have to apply here is create a new image object. From image, when I create a new object, it automatically will go in and ask for the height. Okay, and dot height. Okay, and then we have source. Actually, let's stay with this here. Width, JSON object dot width, and then we have src, JSON object dot src. Super. Okay. And seeing as we're already here, I'm going to just go down and set these elements here. And we have URL. This is all in target here now, and we are pretty much ready to go. Okay. So that is how this this functions here. Now, I'm going to end this video, and we're going to carry off the next part of this in part 6, where we actually start to interact with this information. But what we've done now is we've created a feed object that allows us to interact directly with the JSON feed that comes in. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and share, and keep commenting, please. It's really great to see the positive feedback. And, you know, let's pick it up in the next session. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy your day.